Hey there, college sports fans. For Clemson football, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, to quote Don Meredith, as my father-in-law loves to say. Some things went really right for Clemson against Duke for homecoming, but too many things went way too wrong. They end up losing at home 46-45. They score 45 points and don't win a football game. A lot of things going wrong when that happens. I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme All the Way podcast, season 4.
I'm Daniel Shirley. I think it was our buddy John Blau who tweeted this stat that Clemson is now 134-1 when scoring 45 points. And Bill, there's a lot of those kinds of stats that have been happening the last 3 or 4 years. Remember the game against Duke, oddly enough, 2 years ago to start the season, where they ran for 250 and passed for 250, whatever the stat was.
Right.
And Dabo said that's never happened in the history of our program. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on now. And I texted you this, and I texted a couple other people the same thing. These kinds of things don't happen to good teams. They don't happen to well-coached teams. They don't happen to well-prepared teams.
Yeah.
And you can watch these games and you can see 5 minutes into the game that this Clemson team is not prepared well. I don't know. Look, I don't know what they're doing in practice. I'm not coached. I'm not a coach. I never have been. I would have never wanted to be. But I can't tell you what's going wrong, or even on the first touchdown, what the safety is doing, if that's the corner or the safety. Dabo said it was the safety later, so so we trust him. But you can tell, oh my God, here it goes again. It's and Bill, and I'll shut up after this. We're 8 games into this season.
Yeah.
And these safety, and I'm going to pick on the safeties specifically. And I've TigerNet David Hood did his grades does his grades every week, and he wrote his today. He gave the defensive staff an F, and he gave Dabo an F. And I'm all for it. We're 8 games into the season, and the safeties still have no idea where they're supposed to be.
Right.
How is that still happening? And if Khalil Barnes and Ronan Hannafin and Ricardo Jones don't understand the scheme, or they can't understand it, or they can't execute it, then put them on the bench and at least try some of the young guys. Because Barnes yesterday, terrible play at the end of the first half. That's him. The first touchdown, Ronan Hannafin, that's him, according to Dabo. There was another one that Dabo said there was a slant where the safety was supposed to be there and he's not there, and Avion Terrell gets beat over the middle for a touchdown. That's a third safety bust in this game. How many were there that we didn't see that it didn't end up in huge touchdown plays? But if they can't run the scheme, why are they on the field? And B, if you can't coach it, and you've been there for 10 years now, I mean, how long's the safety coach been there? Khan. And I mean, there's time for some huge changes to come. There have to be. The Clemson's going to have a new strength coach. Nothing has come out about that. We'll see who that's going to be. I pray they don't just promote somebody who's already on the strength staff. Go outside, get new ideas, do something different. But there's got to be changes to the defensive staff. And I know we've railed on Garrett Riley and the offensive staff earlier in the season. The offense has played better the last few weeks, whatever. This defensive staff is failing. And it's failing in recruiting. It's failing in development. And I had somebody text me this yesterday. How about go out and recruit DBs and not just move people from other positions to play DB, which they've done a couple of times. Ronan Hannafin, I said on this podcast before the season, I thought he was going to be a star. He's been awful. And I'm not picking on him. He's not the only one.
Right.
Bill, name a guy on that defense who played well yesterday.
I got
Jaheim Lawson is my only one.
Critical offsides,
That's true. Yeah,
critical,
that's true.
costly offsides,
That's
fundamental error.
absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It, the defensive scheme is not working. The defensive talent is not working. They need a complete reboot on defense. This looks like the Kevin Steele defense, and that team had way more talent than this team has.
Maybe not that good.
Right.
Uh,
I,
they
I'm
look
just I don't know what else to say other than somebody's got to go, and
right.
I don't know who it is.
Well, they figured some things out during that second quarter. I mean, best quarter of the season, I think, in any game out of all eight. Duke is a better opponent than say North Carolina or Boston
Sure,
College, and that's
sure,
why I elevate that quarter of performance from the defense against Duke. Darian Mensah, very capable quarterback, knows how to throw it away. You don't see a lot of that on the Clemson side, but he knew how to, hey, I got to get rid of this ball right off the play, do another one, not do something stupid and costly and make it worse. Wasn't perfect in that regard, but it was certainly something to see and something you'd like to see more from Clemson. You and I have talked about that. Then after such a good several possessions in a row, Clemson pulls ahead 28-21 in just 1 minute of failure, like 1 minute of just let them get right down the field. Someone totally open over the top, very easy deep ball right on target, hits him in stride, simple touchdown with 11 seconds left. And that's where you see the photo that we had on the thumb and the photo that we have up right now, where Dabo Swinney's halftime speech came early, as I tweeted during the game. He started really letting those guys know. And I don't think it really resonated. Maybe they were just gassed, ready to get in for halftime, surprised to hear it when they heard it. Maybe they're checked out. Maybe they're just frustrated. Who knows what it is that caused that flat reaction from players, again, hearing from one of the few coaches in the sport who has won two national titles and not following the lead there.
Be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free, it's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions.
Look, let's also talk about the offense in that second quarter. I mean, boom, boom, boom. And I'll go ahead and get to the third item list. Gideon Davidson emerged during that quarter as a very viable, capable running back. He caught passes. I saw a block or two at some point from him during the game. More than a chip, not a stand a guy up kind of block, but more than a chip and a capable block out on the edge, helping. I think it was Tristan Lee at tackle at that play. Just tough yards, yards after contact. So to see that in that second quarter, the first touchdown in the second quarter, and then Adam Randall comes right in and plays some of his best quarter on the next two, some of his best football on the next two possessions during that quarter as Clemson finally pulled out to a lead. So Klubnik also very efficient during that quarter, looking through his options, finding open guys. Leaned on Antonio Williams a lot, but you did see Tristan Smith get involved. You did see Tyler Brown get involved. You did see, TJ Moore, who had the huge touchdown late. So he did spread the ball. You didn't see the tight ends get as involved, and that may have been just how the matchups were and how Duke was handling things. Klubnik was finding open guys, moving ball down the field. Yeah, there were a couple of 3-and-outs, but not the rash of 3-and-outs that we've sort of been unfortunately accustomed to seeing from the offense when Klubnik is in there. Did his job well. Just too many flaws to overcome, and I'll come back to Klubnik's biggest flaw of the game later, but to see that potential really fulfilled, to see those guys playing the way they ought to be playing, and then to revert at the end of that game. And obviously, they allowed other touchdowns to Duke along the way. What was my biggest problem in the whole game of everything that we saw go wrong? Clemson's defense 0 for 5 stopping fourth downs. Plus, they give up that 2-point conversion. When Duke needed a few yards to move the chains or to get in the end zone, they were very, very willing to go ahead and go for it. And that comes from a guy who was a defensive coordinator before he was a head coach, Manny Diaz, trusts in his offensive coordinator, trusts in his offense, probably also sees the places to go at that Clemson defense and get the yards he needs, get the ball in the end zone, get the first down he's looking for, whatever it was. It was automatic. Like there wasn't much thought about it. And That's a bad sign.
Yeah, I think the coaching again was better from the other team. I mean, we've said that all year. This
Another
team
week of
this
that. Yep.
Yeah, this coaching staff got out coached again. Um, the kickoff return. You know, Bill, the last drive of the first half, where you've done all that work to get back in that game when you're down 21-7, and actually show some fight,
Yeah.
and you take the lead. As you said, you played really well offensively in that quarter, and then you let them go right down the field, and the two cornerbacks each drop a clean interception, just right in your hands. And I knew at that point, I was like, well, this is going to come back and bite them, because that's what this team is. This team is bad luck. And I mean, you make your own luck by being a well prepared team and a well coached team, and they're not either one of those. But I knew as soon as those two interceptions were dropped that Duke was going to score a touchdown. I didn't know that they safeties were going to just stop playing on a play and let a guy run right by them for a touchdown. But I knew they were going to score a touchdown, because that's what this team is. You know, go back to the Georgia Tech game. You know, you got them pinned back. You feeling pretty good about yourselves. Let them drive right down the field and tie the game. You know, yesterday, you've got the lead, and you got them pinned back inside their 10, and your two linebackers, what are they doing? They let a tight end run right by them, and they just stand there, and they don't cover anybody, and they cover grass, and there's no safety behind them, and you give up a big play, and you knew from that immediately when that tight end caught that ball, Duke was going to score a touchdown.
Right.
This team was not going to stop anybody. And I just, this defense, this is as bad a defense as they've had in that I can remember. I'm not saying it's the worst. There have been some that have been worse, and I'm sure people can point that out in the comments. But do you have any confidence they can stop anybody?
Right.
I don't.
No. I know going into every game every week, there's a chance that this team can win as soon as they kick the ball off. But then I also know there's a chance that they are going to no-show, that they're going to make enough mistakes and not make enough big plays to cover up for it. And sometimes I wonder with the stress on turnovers that Tom Allen has put in, are these guys taking that a little too far? Are they failing to thread that needle of, yeah, when the time is right, you go for a turnover, but you don't line up every play trying to deke a quarterback into a mistake that allows you to go make a pick. I mean, look, the two dropped INTs, kind of no excuse for the one that Hampton dropped. It was right in his breadbasket. He may have been surprised. He knew he shouldn't have dropped that. The Terrell one, he was really, really reaching. It was a nice PBU, at least in that case, that he was going for the pick. Make no mistake, and it would have had shades of AJ Terrell's pick against Alabama had he actually raked the ball in. The other thing is sometimes that's why these guys end up as DBs in high school and DB prospects to begin with, because the hands aren't there. So, you know, I've said that, and I don't want to make excuses for the guys, but I'll just tell you, I could live with those, except for what we see out of this defense over and over. And I think this is what you're talking about. There's a bad call against them. There's a big play that happens against them. There's a coverage bust. They are not the type to bow up like we saw 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and say, hey, we're going to atone for this. We're going to cover for this. We don't, those teams didn't care if it was the offense or the defense that made a bad play, had a call go against them. You saw them bow up and tough up, and sometimes there's either an immediate turnover. They're free and out from that point. If there's a middle of a drive, they stop the drive right there, 3 plays, and force a punt, force a field goal, what have you. Think back to Ohio State, the first semifinal when they're out in Arizona, and they allow Ohio State to drive down the field and get into scoring position. It looks like they're going to put it right in the end zone, And what happens? They bow up, they knock them back so far that the field goal becomes missable, and Ohio State gets nothing out of the drive. So that's the kind of thing that we're not seeing out of this team. There's something there that isn't allowing them to say, "Hey, we need to self-ignite. We need to overcome this." And what bugs me is they gave up 21 points in the first quarter, then they almost shut down the entire second quarter. They're on a roll, they're making things happen, and they just they cave again. Like they can't seem to get in that zone, so to speak, and stay for it. And I'm not talking about zone scheme. I'm talking about that mental zone, that psychological zone that allows them to perform really well. I do want to get into, gosh, there's so much that went well in this game, but it just sounds so Pollyanna to go through all of that. And I don't want to really crush Klubnik. I'm sure he was still playing hurt, right? Like he did a lot of things well, distributed the ball well. They put up 45 points. They put up a boatload of yards. I almost said something not family friendly there. They put up a ton of yards. They
Say it.
converted.
We're all in the mood now. Say it.
It was better than the Orange Bowl against Tennessee because they were punching the ball in the end zone. They were getting points.
Yeah.
Bad play call on the trickeration, I would say, and that I don't think that's on Klubnik. Obviously, that's not something he's going to dial up after the radio cuts off and he looks at the opposing defense. So I've had a lot of wonders about that. That clearly was the play call. There was some creativity in the red zone, by the way, which obviously came from the sideline, and I loved it. But maybe that play call was taking it too far. Again, not threading that needle of doing what you need to do and keeping the defense honest to respect all options once you get down there in the red zone is what you're trying to do. You're not trying to have, I know you don't watch Ted Lasso, but for those who do, this is not where they dial up all the trick plays, the elaborate sets, and the it just really irritated me to see that when it was a chance on first down to just say, hey, let's find a way to get this in a more conventional fashion. We've already stretched them. We've already made them respect all options. The other thing that really bugged me about the offense, and I think this does really come down to Klubnik, is that final drive of the game. They did have 40 seconds to work with. First play, you see him check down to someone over the middle where it's going to be hard for them to get out of bounds. It's not going to pick up a lot of yards, very likely. Like that was the wrong decision for that moment. And those were the kind of things that were working well throughout the game. I get it. It was part of the offense that worked, but there was no 2-minute drill, no 40-second mentality of, hey, we got to get chunk plays on the outer perimeter, or if we get a chunk play over the middle, it's got to be, several yards. It can't be, 2, 3, 4 yards to an outlet guy, so to speak. Like that's got to leave. Throw the ball away if there's nothing there. You just saw Darian Mensah do it throughout the game.
Connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there.
Just the poor situational decisions that allowed Duke's defense to bow up, such as it is, even though they were kind of in a prevent, and prevent Clemson from getting into field goal range, which, with Nolan Hooser shouldn't be a huge ask. You move the chains 3 or 4 times and you should be there.
I've got a couple of things. The only problem I had with the offense is the throw to Pendergrass, as you mentioned. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Adam Randall and Gideon Davidson are running the ball right down Duke's throat at that point. You've got momentum. Why get cute? And I've told you this before. Jeff Van Gundy used to say this all the time on the NBA broadcast. Cute gets you beat. And you got cute. This defense, you can't kick field goals. You got to score touchdowns. You waste a timeout on the 2-point try because you got the wrong people on the field.
Right.
So there's one of your timeouts. But again, Bill, that's coaching.
Yep.
That's situation. That's not being prepared, not being ready. You got too many guys on the sideline running around, acting crazy. You're not calm. You're not focused. There's just too much of that.
Yeah.
This coaching staff is failing. And the whole program needs a reset. And I'm not saying fire Dabo. I would never say fire Dabo. But Dabo has got to he said yesterday, I'll do whatever it takes to get this thing turned around. And I texted you, that sounds like a guy who's going to fire some people.
Yeah.
That's the Dabo that we need. We need pissed off Dabo. I got something to prove, Dabo. I've been doubted all my life, Dabo, that we saw from 2009 until when? Even last year they showed some of that. Definitely a couple years ago when they were 4-4 and they came out and housed Notre Dame, they showed it. That's what we need.
Yeah.
This program doesn't need to be one of these, Auburn's fired their coach, all that stuff. You don't need to fire the head coach. He's proven he can get it done. And people who say Dabo need to be fired, you don't remember what it was like.
Right.
Under Tommy West and Ken Hatfield and Tommy Bowden.
Amen.
I'm sorry. That's just stupid. But he's got to accept that what we're doing isn't working. It can't just be, hey, it always has worked, so it'll work again. You've got to do something different or try something different. And that's got to start with that defensive staff. There's got to be changes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, we've seen not only a lot of head coaching firings at not just P4 programs, but big time P4 programs. We've seen SMU and Indiana react to those by going ahead and giving their coaches extensions to try to keep them put, or at least get a bigger buyout if they're going to go. You saw South Carolina today. You were telling me let go of Mike Shula.
Mike Shula.
Doing some family stuff before we got into this. Interesting to hear. Look, Clemson just had the bye week. You would think if Dabo Swinney was going to do this in season, it would have happened during that second bye week, give them some time to get acclimated and sort of reset things. Do you think it happens between now and the end of the regular season, or do you think it waits until after that rivalry game, Gamecocks?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it during the season. And that's his way, and that's admirable, and it's frustrating.
Right.
Right. I mean, and look, he's loyal. I get it. The loyalty has worked. You can't argue that it hasn't worked. But it also is also frustrating because Bill, this defensive staff can't be back intact next year.
Right.
It can't be. Look, I mean, come on, man. Their recruiting has fallen off a cliff. And not even mentioning the decommits the last 3 months, because I don't know how good those players even are.
Yeah.
Based on what they've recruited the last 4 years. So I mean, and they got a linebacker commit recently. Okay, great. Is he going to play like the guys that are playing now? Well, then what's that to get excited about? Yeah. The linebackers are terrible. They're terrible. And I don't know if that's scheme or coaching or what, or that's the talent. Well, I don't know. But they're not good. The safeties these are the worst safeties I've ever seen Clemson have.
And I've seen Khalil Barnes make big plays during his career. It's not fitting right now. And at least at this point, Tom Allen's getting a chance to shop for his own groceries, as Bill Parcells would have put it, right? So
he needs to be able to do that with his staff too.
Right. Well, I agree, and I think that even if he's got to be able, if he's going to be the CEO of the defense, he's got to be able to build his own executive suite, so to speak, out of assistant coaches, and I would say the analysts too. And I think there needs to be a paring back of how many analysts there are. Excellent piece on TigerIllustrated.com that detailed just how many assistants and analysts are on that staff. That look, it's a good thing to have more people, right? But Dabo Swinney has talked about that prized alignment that Clemson has. Well, I think you also have to look at that. The offensive staff has to have that alignment from the coordinator to the assistants to the analysts. I think the defensive staff has to have that from the coordinator to the assistants to the analyst. And I'm not so sure that when you just bring in Garrett Riley and say, hey, we're keeping Spiller, we're keeping Richardson, so on and so forth, Grisham. Obviously, there's been a change since Riley got there to bring in Matt Luke, and then the same thing on defense. You bring in Tom Allen, but you keep 4 guys with Rumph, Eason, Kahn, and Reed. look,
That was a
okay,
mistake. That was a mistake from the
it
start.
sure feels like it. And
Yeah.
maybe Tom Allen deserved the chance to say, hey, let me take a look at these guys. They brought these players in. Let me see what's going on. We know Tom Allen looked at the tape ad infinitum. I would have liked maybe at the end of spring for there to be an opportunity for Tom Allen to make some calls, find some people who he knows, and say, hey, guess what? I need a guy at this spot. I need a guy at this spot, and we need to make this happen. This certainly should be the off season where that does take place. And quite frankly, since we didn't see a lot of improvement during that bye week, I mean, we sure did with Gideon Davidson. Thank goodness he stood out really as the young talent that emerged. We didn't see any young guys really emerge in that game against Duke on defense the same way. We saw Braden Jacobs adapt a little bit, take on some new roles. We've already seen him emerge and flash, but it was nice to see him kind of get some building blocks on that. We're talking about two guys out of that entire roster. Maybe that bye week was spent doing a little homework on what's that staff going to be like next year, rather than 2 weeks of, hey guys, let's find something that's going to allow these safeties to not get torched all the time. Let's find something that's going to bring out the tremendous talent that we have seen in the corners. Let's see something that's going to get Wade Woodaz back to who he used to be as a backup before he became a starter, so on and so forth down the line. Just not seeing enough of that in that game. And we did see better performance, right? The one thing that we really saw was the creativity in the red zone. I will give a lot of credit for that. I was really thrilled to see different play calls down there. Maybe it got a little too far, but uh, all in all, I'll take that. Like that's something to build on. Now there's more stuff on tape in that red zone. Now there's things they can offer. I think we have about 2 minutes left. What do you see? Is there any way to build on the success that we saw against Duke, even though it came up short, to see a better performance against Florida State, against Louisville, against South Carolina?
No, no, I'm sorry.
That's honest.
I think they're going to be 1-3. I think they're looking at a 4-8 season, and they might be Furman. So I think we're looking at, this is the worst season since the Tommy West year where they went 3. And maybe they somehow squeeze out a win against South Carolina in a rivalry game, and everybody's fired up, and we're playing for, I don't know. They're not beating Florida State. Louisville is going to destroy them.
Jeff Brom is so good at what he does, and he's going to look
Right.
at this defensive tape and
he's going to light them on fire. And we saw they couldn't tackle Lenore Sellers last year.
Right.
I don't know how they tackle him this year. They're going to get bullied up front on both sides by all three of those teams. No, I have no expectation for them to win another game other than Furman. And that doesn't count. I mean, come on. It's an FCS school. Those games don't count. But I want there to, I'm waiting for the day after the South Carolina game to find out which assistant coaches get fired. I'm sorry. I hate to be that way, but remember when Dabo got the job, he walked down to Vic Koning's office and fired him?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't doing the things that needed to be done for a winning program. That's the guy that needs to show his face again with this program.
Well, a firm note to end on, but we are out of time. Check us out online, ClemsonKickoff.com, social media at Clemson Kickoff, all the platforms that you probably are on. You will find us there. Until that next episode after the Florida State game. Oh, wow, that's going to hurt. I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers. What happened?
Just thinking about Florida State and what Castellanos is going to do to us. So.
Yeah.